To conclude, we can chant Om 3 times together. Om. 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 Peace. Silence. What's our relationship to it? There's a certain expectation which we have, which we had when the meditation practice ended. What's next? What happens next? And in this silence, there's a requirement for us just to face up to the uncertainty. What's happening? So I took my time to speak there. And in those few moments, you may have found yourself wondering, may have experienced a degree of restlessness. And fundamentally, I think this is what silence does for us. The closer we get to experiencing it, the more we become face to face with our own restlessness, in whatever way that might manifest itself. And in the context of this experience, it may have been questions like, when's he going to speak? What's happening? Okay, we finished the meditation. Come on, say something. Because that's the expectation. And the expectation built into it is an anxiety. Is it going to go according to what we think, what we anticipate, what we expect to happen? Is it going to go according to that imagined version, that imagined eventuality? And so there's an anxiety that we're confronted with. The unknown. So from silence, we are subjected to the infinite possibility of what could manifest, what could come about. And again, returning to the context of this situation, there's a kind of a framework that we're used to. So there's an expectation that this framework will be adhered to. And then when we find ourselves experiencing a rupture in that ordinary, usual format, we experience uncertainty. And it challenges our own ability to just be with what's taking place, just to accept it, just to navigate it, ride the wave as it unfolds. So when we sit in our meditation practice, we were adhering to our own expectations. We sat down, we closed our eyes. There was an initial invocation, and then you sat in silence and you navigated your way through the silence using techniques or whatever other means you have to adapt to that experience. But then the formal meditation practice finishes. And what's left? Well, now we're into the informal practice, the informal meditation. The essence of meditation is being able to just be aware of what's taking place as it's taking place, noticing and abiding in our own being as we experience it. In our formal meditation practice, some of us have years of experience with that. In the informal practice of day-to-day living, well, we all have years of experience of that too, but just the framework isn't as easy to control as it is when we sit down to our formal practice. So meditation isn't something that has to be bound up within formal practice and informal practice. It's a continuum. It's the experience of just abiding in our own knowing of our essential nature when we're not identified with everything that's going on. So at the end of our formal practice, before I started to speak, there was a period of silence. An unknowing of what was going to happen, uncertainty of what was going on. But there's no difference between the silence in our formal meditation practice and the silence that we experience within those few moments. There's no difference. The only difference is our attitude, our expectation, our being able to adapt, ride the wave, and to experience what's taking place as it's taking place to contain our own anxiety, not let it consume us, to be aware and alert of our own preferences and how they manifest themselves in thinking processes, and how this creates a restlessness at an emotional level and a physical level. And to be cognizant of all of this as we're faced with the uncertainty of silence. I say uncertainty of silence, and what comes to mind is in our meditation practice, we aim to experience silence and to dive deep into the silence. But it's within a controlled environment. But life isn't like that. So when we get off our cushion and open our eyes, and then the speaker is not speaking, what's going on? And who are we? How are we going to relate to that? How is it for us? What does it do for us? How does it challenge us? So in all of that, we just experience restlessness. And we're used to hearing it being said that when we sit in meditation practice, restlessness is going to be experienced. It's going to be the cause of our becoming distracted. And so we have to cultivate concentration, one-pointed focus. And we navigate it within our formal meditation practice. But then just coming face to face with the silence for the few moments as you did at the end of our practice, that's real. Because that was unrehearsed. And so the restlessness that was felt there, to whatever degree it was felt, wasn't orchestrated. It wasn't premeditated. It wasn't scheduled. It was us coming face to face with the unknown. And so for our meditation practice, it requires us to be disciplined, to be able to, first of all, make time to do it, and then to follow a systematic approach which allows us to get good at navigating the terrain of our own internal landscape. And so we get really good at that. But when we talk about discipline in our informal practice and what's going on in our lives, our day-to-day living, it's not so easy to set up a framework for that. There's an idea that if we're just told what to do, then it will make things a lot easier. And what comes to mind when I think of that is the yamasandniyamas, which are offered to us within the 8 limbs, as a framework of principles to live by. But are they telling us what to do? Are they putting in place a protocol for how we're actually supposed to engage in life? There's no set criteria that has been laid out for us to actually measure in a very systematic manner how we're adhering to that framework. More than it being a kind of a framework for knowing how to engage in life, what exactly to do, it's more a framework for how to be as an expression of life, expressing within life, how to be. So when we think of discipline, we often think about what we have to do. And even in our meditation practice, what do we have to do? But in its essential form, meditation requires nothing. We're not doing anything. In discipline in our life, we can have our routines and our schedules, and this is helpful. It creates structure. But it's not the fundamental aspect of what it means to be disciplined. Being disciplined means that we're able to know how to be. as each moment unfolds, that we are intuitively aware to know how to respond in each moment as it arises. That's about our beingness. And so the yamas and niyamas, that framework, is an aid for us because it's not actually giving us a load of boxes to tick. It's not prescribing step by step what we're supposed to do. Instead, it's creating a space for us to question and ask, how are we being? How are we being? So silence reminds us of how well we're doing. Silence brings us to a space where we are face to face with our own restlessness. So while silence in meditation, formal practice, might be something that we're quite used to, the silence as it manifests itself or as it presents itself in our day-to-day life reflects back to us our own capacity to just be with it. And the silence of our everyday life, of our day-to-day living, can happen in lots of different ways. When we talk about silence, we're thinking of this empty room or an empty space where there's nothing taking place. But you could be sitting in traffic with the radio on and still experience the silence of it. And then the question is, how are you being in that silence? Or you could be attending a dinner party and there could be conversations taking place around you. And you can hear the conversations, but there's a silence. And how are you being in that silence? Because the silence represents itself. It's signified within the world as all of that which is unknown to us, which cannot be known until it demonstrates and reveals itself. So we're faced with our own uncertainty and the anxiety of what that might bring for us, the restlessness. So I suppose as a way to finish up, I'd say when we are contemplating silence, many of us are quite experienced at contemplating our silence within our formal practice, but contemplating silence within our day-to-day lives. What does that mean? How do we do that?